United Methodist Church.
Lord, in the spirit of the individual that we remembered and honored yesterday, may we as leaders in this community be light in the midst of darkness, and may we express love in the midst of the fear and rage of the world. God, send your Spirit to guide this gathering of men and women and the decisions that they make tonight for our community. May your peace, may your hope be with us all. In Christ's name I pray this. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Barrington. Allen. Charks. Smith. Sabers. Rice.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Okay, we have a quorum. We'll start out with an executive session. Motion to enter into executive session in accordance with motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Legal and negotiations is the purpose. regular session. Item 6, approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of formal agenda items. Anything you wish to remove?
Do you want to make a comment on the final second, or first and second penny sales tax and the third penny? We're a little less than 2018 on first and second, and we're better than 2018 on third penny, but
Yeah.
any insight?
Well, first and second penny is up, or down, sorry, 1.39% over the same period last year, but it is above our budgeting numbers. And then third penny.
So we
Whoop.
paid attention when we budgeted.
Yes, exactly. And then third penny is at 5.57%. And I think Stephanie has a spreadsheet here to show you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to pull up. It's not working. Let's try it again here. The state does not disclose sales tax that's specifically coming through the internet. We don't have any way to differentiate that. There's been requests, but the concern is that it would release too much confidential information. So the reporting that we get from the state does not separate that into internet versus brick and mortar sales. The one, I'm having trouble pulling this up, but you can see our budget amount for 2019 was 11,043,000, and we came in at 11,290,000. So we were about $250,000 over what the anticipated budget was. And then for entertainment tax, our budget was $790,000, and we came in at $833,000. So both of those came above budget numbers. We always think it's, geez, hold on. Okay, this thing's broken. We always think it's a little bit difficult when we're trying to report sales tax numbers. You'll see the information that comes out from the state, and they will report on municipal taxes due to the city, when they do their end of the year reporting for the calendar year. The problem is that report usually combines our first and second penny along with our entertainment tax all into one lump sum. So we do use this one quite a bit, but this really just shows you the amount of sales tax that the city received throughout this calendar year as compared to the amount we received from the state the previous calendar year. It's not always reflective of taxes due, because it's just really whoever submitted their taxes and when we received it. But this is important for us because this is what we use when we're forecasting whether or not we're going to hit our budget. So you do see a lot of different numbers out there. That's the reason why. Just keeping in mind that in 2018, we did have a one-time influx of equipment purchases that we were aware of with a local manufacturer expansion, which really kind of created a bump in that sales tax for 2018. So all year, we were anticipating, we knew we'd be less than last year, but our goal was to hit budget, which we did. So, and we're a little bit above. So once we get through the annual reporting time frame, and Michelle gets the opportunity to close out all the financial budgets and everything else that they go through, we'll be able to sit down with council and look at where we actually ended the year in budget compared to where we thought we would be with all revenue collected and all expenses written. And then that's a time when you as council can determine if you want to designate some funds into reserve for future purchases or other items that you are considering. So
This was discussed at our meeting with South Dakota Municipal League last week, too. Other first-class municipalities are concerned that there's no way to account for who's paying the taxes and whatnot, who's delinquent. And interestingly enough, there was a bill that went before last year's legislature to make it somewhat accountable, and they voted against having the accountability put out there, so. So they see little chance that anything will change this year as well.
But that's also why you hear us report in a number of different ways, because we kind of have to take all those variables into consideration when we're setting budget and projections for the upcoming years.
Okay, I've got one other question in the consent agenda. On the ambulance write-off, that money will come, it's just written off and not, how does that impact the 2019 final, it'll be revenue just not expected in EMS?
Right, going forward.
Okay.
If it is collected, it will be revenue in that year going forward. This is kind of a public safety issue, I guess. But how it usually works is these do stay on the books, or we do still keep track of them, and we can still collect going forward if,
But technically, we're going to write them off for 2019?
yes.
Okay.
Other discussion? Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience wishes to address any of these? Roll call, please.
Charks, oh, sorry. Smith.
Aye.
Savers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input, if you need to address the mayor or members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Does anybody wish to come on up, sir?
Good evening, councilors. I'm Dwight Stadler. I live at 700 West 7th Avenue. From the flood, the point is with this is I'm going to make a proposal that the city council consider for the future. When the flood happened back in September, and like our basement had flooded out in our house, and it came up through the drainage system, from the streets, drainage, or whatever was unable to handle it. So it came in through the floor drains in our basement. And what I learned subsequently, thanks to one of our neighbors, is to put in a backwater valve in the main sewer line. And I'd spoken with one of the city councilors about it previously, and I'm not sure if you guys have addressed it or not, but what I'm suggesting is you might want to consider amending the city code for building permits and that all new construction require those to be in to mitigate damages to not just residences, but businesses as applicable. That's basically it. It's a suggestion for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Any comments from council? Okay. Item 9, request to waive tipping fees for approximately 450 to 500 tons of materials in the Mitchell area landfill. The city has received a request from Holy Family Church to waive the tipping fees for demolition of the Knights of Columbus Hall and Auditorium on Kimball Street. Demolition is estimated 450 to 500 tons at a cost impact of $20,000 in lost revenue.
Good evening, Mayor
Mr.
Everson
Sparks.
and city council members. My name is Nathan Sparks. I'm the Holy Family Catholic Church Finance Committee Chairperson. Holy Family is planning to demolish the Holy Family School Gymnasium and Knights of Columbus meeting area at the intersection of East 2nd and North Kimball. The gym has not been used for over 8 years. The KC meeting area has many needs such as a boiler, air conditioner, roof repair. With the lack of the usefulness, there's a minimal need to complete these repairs, and the Knights of Columbus have recently vacated that building as well. Holy Family is in need of more parking for the weekend masses as well as occasional funerals. When we demolish the building, we plan to fill in the fill with about 30 parking spaces that will also extend the existing city parking lot immediately east of Logan Luxury Theater, which there's also a need for more parking there. Holy Family will be paying for the building demo and a new blacktop surface to create the parking lot. Since we are creating more parking, we ask for your consideration from the city in the form of waiving the tipping fees for that rubble that will be hauled to the landfill. Kevin Roth has reviewed the building and estimated the amount of the rubble as stated on the agenda between 450 and 500 ton. I was informed this evening that there is a mason that might be interested in a portion of the brick for recycling or whatever other matters there are, but so that could reduce the amount of fill that we have coming out of there. So I thank you for your consideration, and I'll stand by for any questions that you might have.
So you would let the city extend it, or you would extend it from the city parking lot to the west of there, all the way to Kimball Street.
Correct.
You would let anybody that wanted to go to the shows or whatever to park there at night?
Yeah, so the double up or the overlap might be on a Saturday night evening. They're certainly not going to be there on a Sunday morning unless they're parked overnight, but Saturday evening might be your overlap of parking.
So, and they're free to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, I mean, there's no way we're going to sit anybody out there to put them anywhere else. So we've got a 5:30 mass, but it's come as you go, and that's what they do right now, so.
Right.
When I read the proposal, I had a question of whether or not we have an agreement with the church concerning this arrangement. We had an agreement with the other church not very long ago. You say you're going to turn it into a parking lot and the city's welcome to use it as though it's a city lot. My question is, what if you change your mind? Is it owned by the Knights of Columbus or the church?
It's actually owned by the church.
Okay, and what if the church board says, I guess, now that it's down, let's sell that lot? I mean, I think we need an agreement of what the terms of the exchange is.
Sure, and I wouldn't have any suggestion on an agreement or how that would work, quite honestly, as
John,
far
you're
as
you're thinking
that
like
goes.
at least, if we waive the tipping fees and they take it down, it turns into a parking lot for at least
So many
a certain-
years.
certain amount of time, 2 or 3 years or something,
For
or,
instance, the Methodist
Or-
Church was, I think, a minimum of 3
Well-
years.
oh, was it?
Yeah,
I think it was
Okay.
5. I can't.
5, 3 to 5, something like that. It could have been
Something
5,
like that.
I don't. Anyway, would you be willing to enter into an agreement?
I mean,
Or it would be a parking
I
area
like
for
the
5
idea
years?
of maybe 20,000 for a parking lot there, but you're right, I don't want to have that done and then, they sell it and somebody puts something up there right away.
Yeah, I would see no reason why we wouldn't enter into a similar agreement. There'd be no reason on our behalf not to.
I would point out, the agreement that we had with the First United Church was different than what's being projected or proposed here. In that situation, the city took over that lot, we'll be putting in the parking lot at our expense. So there are, differing circumstances, but if you just look at the cost comparison, waiving these tipping fees would be probably significantly more than the expenses we would have in building a parking lot over at the other church.
And maintenance of this lot is going to be on the church?
That would, yes, we do that now.
Striping, fixing the potholes, et cetera, et cetera? Snow removal, or is that a joint effort, since it's a joint lot, or would almost become one?
There is a small parking lot there now, which is used, and we take care of that particular lot. The only thing that would be,
Is that's on the east side of the building?
that is on the east side, correct?
Yeah. No parking on the west side?
Well, that'd be the city
that's all
lot
city.
that's
Yeah,
currently there.
That's the city there.
And currently, as I drove by there actually this afternoon, the only thing that, outside of the building being there, the only other obstacle there are, I believe, 3 signs that say no parking, because that is your access to get all the way around next to the building.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to considering that, but I think we need to have an agreement that yes, it's going to be a parking lot that the city can use, et cetera, for a set amount of time at least, in case all of a sudden the new church board says, now that that's down, I think we could sell it. Somebody, and then all of a sudden we just help pay for getting the lot ready for you to sell.
And that would not be our intention, but I can certainly understand the concern. Because we have a need for parking as well, and that would have more value to us as a parking lot than it would be selling it to anybody else for that purpose.
And that lot to the west of the building is awfully used. I mean, it's a busy parking lot now, so the additional parking makes a lot of sense for the church and for moviegoers, bankers, et cetera.
Mr. Croce, you have any concerns?
I think, Mr. Mayor and Council, I think Justin said it the best. It's a considerable amount of money in reference to what we gain from building a parking lot. So I think I estimated 22,500 in lost revenue from the 500 tons, which equates to about a week of the landfill life. So I think we'd take it seriously, but if they were willing to also, if you're talking about an agreement and conditions, if they were willing to separate the debris and maybe haul off the materials and metals that would go to landfill versus that other materials like brick that could be recycled, or for landscapers to come and pick up, that would be an advantage to us as well.
That would be done with the local demo. Who is doing the demo?
Schoenfelder. And he has done that before, where some of those metal and whatnot had been recycled off, so.
Sure, oh, sure. It would save a lot of tonnage going into the dump. So do we need tonight to prove this with the agreement that we'll have 5 years in place? We need to do that, or you want to come back?
I think if the direction is that you're looking to go in the direction of approving this, you can have me work out an agreement with them, and we can bring that back at a later meeting.
Okay.
Could we have it the first meeting in February?
What were you looking at, Nathan, as a demolition? Do they have the permit already, the demolition permit?
As far as I know, we're ready to go. So we're basically waiting for approval, and then we're gonna at least get started. And I know Schoenfelder's ready to go, being a little slow in the wintertime for them, so they've got something to do too, so.
Guarantee you want to do it now than later.
Mm-hmm.
You can get time later.
Well, the wintertime is the time to do it with the load limits and anything else that goes on.
So how do we execute this?
I guess if you,
I-
you know, if
Church
the
would
council's,
never lie to us either. But, you know, some of these considerations have to be down. I want to move it along also, but I'd hate to, a week from now, say, oh, we forgot to talk about this, or, you know, who's going to be responsible for that?
I guess if the council's given a fair bit of direction tonight, if you feel comfortable, you could delegate the authority to the mayor to enter into that agreement, assuming we come up with terms that are acceptable to him.
I like that. Yeah, and that way.
And if we
the
get something worked out before
Timeline
the
might be
next
able to
meeting, that
stay
could save
moving a
some
little
time.
faster than waiting till the next meeting.
Is that acceptable with you guys, Nathan?
I would sure think so, yes.
But you
Okay.
would probably want to take action on that comment that you would waive the tipping fees upon
Yeah, and
an
I'll make,
acceptable
yep,
agreement.
I'll make the motion that we waive the tipping fees for the demolition of the KC Hall, and that an agreement for terms of use and maintenance and operation be worked out with the city attorney, and that the mayor and the church can then implement that agreement.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion?
Just one comment. The landfill is basically building a parking lot, which doesn't make much sense. So Kyle, keep in mind that, you know, if the numbers come in good, or a contingency or whatever throughout the year, you know, looks like it's something that the general fund can afford, why don't you bring that back as a supplement? And Stephanie, you can help us with that too. I don't know if that's,
You mean, I'm not following, you mean, we're not constructing the parking lot?
no,
You mean the lost
but
revenue?
the landfill is losing revenue as a result of that. So I don't know if there's a way of structuring that or not. But we're getting a parking lot, but Kyle's paying for it from the landfill.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, I mean, we'll keep tickets and the tonnage that comes into the landfill and work with Schoenfelder on, what can be. Absolutely. So we'll keep tickets and a record of it. Whether they're waived or not, we know where it's coming from.
So Kyle, I gotta ask you, so the building gets demolished, it heads out to landfill. Does it go on a separate site beside the cell, or what does it do?
No, it's considered construction and demolition debris, so for that cell, it would go in there.
So when do they come out? Anytime and take the steel out, or steel out as they take it?
Actually, the way the contractor did, I think on 3rd and Main, was when they were pulling down the building, they had separated some of that material so that there were piles of brick before it even came to the landfill.
Sure, okay, very good.
Does that go to Millennium then? Or where do you take the recycle? To
No,
the H&R?
right, H&R could use metal if it's feasible. Otherwise, that part would go in the landfill. And again, if we had it separated where we had brick or concrete that landscapers could use or come and take, we would make that available too.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Hearing, thanks, Nathan. Hearing an action on application to transfer RB 2842 retail on off-sale, malt beverage license from I-90 Fuel Services, Inc., doing business as I-90 Travel Plaza number 101, 1821 South Burr Street, Suite A, Mitchell, to Holiday Station Store 490, 1821 South Burr, Mitchell. Any issues with this, Mr. Still? No.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience wishes to address this? Come on up. State your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I missed the question. I'm with Holiday,
Oh,
so if there's no questions, I'm good with it.
I don't think, right now there are.
That's all right.
I might have spurred some.
Motion and a second to approve.
All right,
We have a motion and a second to approve it right now.
Perfect.
so, Okay?
thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for the City Council to recess, sit at the Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Barrington. Okay? Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on Darren Devon and Dustin Long, 520 South Raleigh. Darren Devon and Dustin Long have applied for a height variance of 28 feet versus 22 feet in the side yard on a corner variance of 2 feet versus 20 feet for construction of an addition to an existing building located at 520 South Raleigh, legally described as Lot 789, Block 9, Van Epps, First Edition, City of Mitchell. Property is zoned R3, medium density, residential. One thing I will point out, this is a variance, and again, in our planning and zoning code, we require a hardship, which in my case, I don't see where this is a hardship, but we should look at these as far as following along with our planning and zoning code requirements, or change our planning and zoning.
Okay.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes, Mayor and council members, if I just was going to, if you took a look at the Planning Commission minutes, you would see that they did recommend on a 3-2 vote to approve this variance with a stipulation that the property pins be located. I am aware that the property was surveyed in the 1990s when they built the when they built the building. However, due to the snow cover, trying to find the pins would be a little difficult at this point. So that was the stipulation that they said to, just to make sure, being that within 2 feet, that make sure that the pins are located prior to issuance of a permit. So, Mr. Long is here if you've got questions.
The pins are found.
You found?
Yeah, they placed new ones.
Oh, okay,
Yep. And we're good with the 2 feet.
okay. Well, then I guess that answers that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion?
Just as an observation, I noticed one's missing, so just to remind you that it does require 6.
Okay, anybody else wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing action on Alexis Jennings, 1309 East Fifth Avenue. Alexis Jennings has applied for a conditional use permit to operate a family residential childcare business located at property 1309 East Fifth. Legally describes Lot 4, Block 1, Bridle Acres Addition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, property zoned R2.
Again, the planning commission did hold a hearing on this conditional use and did recommend approval with some conditions. One is that she pass a fire inspection, which I was just notified by the fire marshal that he's scheduled for tomorrow. Two, that it's non-transferable. Three, that is, if the permit, if she ceases to operate for a period of 6 months or longer, then a new permit is required. And then, we're understanding she has a fence already installed there. They would recommend that, as long as there's a daycare, that the fence remains. So I don't know, is she here? Yep, she's here if you have questions for her. No objections from anybody, so.
Move to approve conditions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene as city council. Entertain a motion for the board adjustment to adjourn city council reconvene regular session.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Discussion on wastewater collection study report by Camden Hofer of SPN and Associates. You don't look like
I'm
Camden.
not Camden. I'm Terry Aker filling in for Camden. Hello, everybody. We completed a evaluation of the city's sanitary sewer system, and I'm here to give a very, very brief review or summary of our findings and recommendations. So we'll go ahead and get started. That's a table of all of the sewer main in the city with the size and type of pipe. As you can see, there's about 500,000 feet of sewer main in the city of Mitchell, with 60% of it being clay pipe, or almost 300,000 feet, which is the VCP, is vitrified clay pipe. The others, in our experience with clay pipe, it's generally 50 years old and older. A lot of it's cracked, misaligned joints, sags. It's generally not in very good condition. So that's one of the major issues with the system. Some of the major issues we found, again, is a lot of clay pipe. There's a large amount of inflow and infiltration. During heavy or wet periods or heavy rain events, it's not uncommon that a lot of the lift stations, or not a lot, some of the lift stations in the wastewater treatment plant have to bypass the flow that's coming into them because they just can't handle it. There's areas of high maintenance. There's several areas within the city that the city crews have to clean and jet multiple times a year to maintain flow in the sewer system. And then we also found some undersized mains. So our recommendation, and this is a worst-case scenario, is replacing all of the clay pipe.
That's a pretty bad case.
That's a very bad case.
There goes our budget, Stephanie.
300,000 feet, just under, yes.
Better start buying some of the lottery tickets.
Again, that's worst case. One of our recommendations, and that list, and I'm going to go through some of these in more detail, or all of them a little bit more detail, is to clean and televise the entire system. That way, we'll have a lot better idea what's actually there. A lot of times it's eye-opening, and it'll verify that most of this does need to be replaced, but it definitely gives you an accurate view of what's there. And
Some pictures that were pretty good, and then some that were
yeah,
terrible.
and that's televising will just help, help us in the city go back, revisit this, and it might be, maybe it's 80 million or 90 million, but I'd rather give you a worst-case scenario and it'd be 80 or 90 versus tell you it's 60 and then it's 100. I'd rather give you the worst case. So I'll go through to tackle this, improving this amount of pipe. We've put together some scenarios. Again, only 2% of the system's been televised, so we're recommending that it's only the problem areas.
So recommend televise the entire system at just under $2 million. Again, those areas that the city is multiple times a year having to clean, there's about 12,000 feet of that. And also, that 12,000 feet includes relocating a sewer main that currently goes under the depot. So, the cost of replacing all of that, those problem areas is just about $4.9 million. And we provided a map that those yellow highlights where those locations are at.
Terry, are they mostly in the older neighborhoods, those areas? Or not?
Some of them, you can kind of, some of them are in the edges, so it's not as much in the center of town as you would think. We met with the street department, got an idea of what was on their radar for the next few years of replacing. You don't want to build a new street over old sewer mains. Came up with a cost estimate and identified those areas at just about $4.5 million and provided a map of those are the locations where they're planning or hope to do street improvements. We completed a water study a couple years ago that recommended the replacement of cast iron and asbestos water mains. If you're already digging up the water main, you just well replace the sewer right next to it. So we identified those locations and came up with cost estimates. Along the cast iron pipe would be $24.5 million and just over $11 million along the asbestos water lines. And those just maps showing where the cast iron pipe is and then where the asbestos pipe is. The other one is the undersized mains. We found some mains that can't handle the flow. So what happens then is the water builds up until it has enough pressure to move it through. In those areas, we came up with $7.4 million to replace those lines. And that's a map showing those locations. The city would be replacing some of these, but where it's the worst case, it's along the interceptor as it's going out to the plant, and then from the Foster Street lift station going north. That's where the worst backups are occurring. In the Foster Street north, it's backing up, and Camden would know this better than me, but I think as much as 4 or 5 feet.
That's the one that goes across the country.
Yep, so that's why it's not backing into basements. If it was doing that in the middle of town, you'd have water in a lot of people's basements, and I'm sure you'd already have it replaced. So that leaves the remaining clay pipe to be replaced of $61 million. And again, televising might bring that number down, might be able to line some of it. Some of it actually might be all right, but until you televise it, you just don't know.
So lining it, Terry, I know that's quite a reduction. We've been doing that in Allen.
Yep. It saves a street cost. For 8-inch, right now we're seeing lining prices come in at $20 a foot or less, whereas replacing it's probably pushing 50, plus then you have the street cost on top of it. The issue that we have with lining, it doesn't replace, unless you're replacing the service lines as well, it doesn't help with the infiltration, because the infiltration will follow the liner till the first service, and then you can't believe it's like a fire hydrant or a fire hose just blowing in that service line.
By lining it, you mean like slip lining?
Slip lining, yes. And that's the map of the remaining sewer. Our evaluation also included looking at the 14 lift stations within the city system. We found that 12 of the 14 need some type of improvements. But some of the issues we found, lift stations is undersized. Some of them are just outdated. Some of them are nearly 50 years old, and once they start being 30 years old, you should start planning to get it replaced. Grease, solids accumulation, and odors were some of the other issues that we found. This is a list of the 12 lift stations that need some improvements, totaling nearly $7 million. This list is prioritized with our recommendations, so the number one priority is the Daily Drive lift station, which we are currently performing the design to replace that this
The
year.
23rd Avenue, is that the corner of Ullman and 23rd?
Yes.
Is that
I
what
think
that
so.
one is? The one that has a terrible odor in the
Yes.
summer? The house changes over every 6 months?
Yep. Yeah, I used to live down there, so.
Yeah.
Yep, used to. So in summary, with the lift stations and then again, the worst-case scenario, it's nearly, it's over $122 million worth of improvements. And it's nothing you're going to tackle in the next 5, even probably 10 years, but it's something that needs to be on your radar, and so you can start planning. And once you get to televising, we can sit with the city, or the city staff can sit down and prioritize and figure.
switch over to plastic, approximately?
Generally in the 70s. So a lot of this clay was put in, almost up to that, the 60s. A lot of it's probably 30s, 40s. Yeah, it's old. Any questions?
Al, you giving everybody sticker shock when I go home, don't you?
No, is there any, I mean, that was real brief, and that's just highlighting all of that, so.
You probably had it in there, but what's the galvanized or what amount of pipe that we have with that, or is?
I don't think there's any galvanized. There's some ductile iron, a very small amount of ductile, but it's,
Yeah, galvanized.
Was water, not the sewer, okay.
yeah, there's
The
750.
DIP is ductile iron pipe.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of that. But that's-
CIPP is concrete.
No, that's the lining that you have
Oh,
performed to
okay.
date.
All right.
That's cast-in-place pipe, that's what the
Okay.
CIPP.
Gotcha.
It's kind of hard to fathom that there's a 500,000 feet of sewer, just mains in the city, so.
Explain a little bit more about the televised. You got actual cameras down there, or is it mapping?
Nope, they actually come in and clean it, and then they send a little robot with or with a camera on it that videos it as it goes.
Okay.
We don't have one, do we?
Yeah, the city does have.
Yeah, we have a TV, so we can TV the lines. We don't have the cleaning capability. I think we rely on the private contractors to come in and do that, but we can televise some lines, and we would look to do some of that.
In fact, about 2% that has been televised, I think it all came from the city.
That's right, yes, sir.
And there's some areas that are worse than the other that you've identified or not? Not
Well,
yet?
definitely, with the 2% about that there's definitely areas that are a lot worse, and Steve saw it, you must look at the report, there's,
Okay.
Some look really clean,
yeah.
and others look like you can't see anything.
Yeah, just televising it just opens your eyes, it's amazing what you'll see. You'll find chunks of pipe missing, and you can't believe that the street hasn't collapsed yet. I remember down in winter, they were trying to wait a year to replace that, and they had it collapsed, so they had to end up doing it during the middle of the winter.
Your report has a graph of when certain moisture amounts, the spike of
Yep.
water that when.
That's the other issue with the clay pipe is when the groundwater's high, it's all those cracks and joints, it's just rushing in there.
That's where you get tree stumps going in there, tree roots, don't you, in clay pipe a lot? or not?
Yep, because there's cracks, that helps the roots go in there and get started, yep.
That's where you grow the biggest trees.
Well,
Yep. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Item 16, action to table decision on one-way streets to April 6, 2020, city council meeting. The reason we're tabling this is because it's impossible to paint the roads to get rid of the arrows that show two-way traffic currently. So I would recommend we table it until we can get to warmer weather, and if you want, we make the decision at that point.
Table.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2020-03, Geocom dispatch mapping software. Speaking to this one. Oh, that's you. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at Kyle.
That's okay. This is, Geocom is our mapping service for 911, and the end of life of the current software is up, and it needs to be upgraded, and they won't support it now after 2019, so we need to upgrade it. This is a 3-year contract for that.
I guess I don't have an issue with it, but we've talked about before, since we're doing the 911 and the counties we have contract with, do our county agreements allow us to pass along software and capital costs? And I know they probably don't, but should they in the future?
We just had this conversation the other day, and I believe that we're in the last year of those agreements, so we are in discussion with what kind of capital costs need to be incorporated
What we can
into
include.
those renewals now that they're going to be up. I was thinking we had a whole nother year, but Glenn said they're up this year, so those will be factored in for future agreements.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. McCardle. Second. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2020-04, contract with LL Jerza Architect for professional services for roof replacement of the Public Safety Building Project 2020-16. Mr. Johnson.
This is a contract with Larry Jerza to put together some plans to replace the roof on the public safety building. It would be broke up into 2 different sections. We would re-roof the flat area with a new rubber roof. And then there's some lower flat areas that hold a fair amount of water and dump to the other roofs, or use rain gutters, that we're going to put a metal peaked roof over some of those areas just to try to control the water a lot better. We've had a number of leaks in the building. They've done a number of patches, and the right way to go about this is to replace all the roof sections all at the same time. These roofs also have ballast rock on top of the old rubber, and this is the same type of system we've been replacing on top of the rec center, and we've had very good luck with that. So that is a portion of this contract. The other 2 items is there's a lot of areas on the building that need some brick repointing and some stucco repair. So that would be also in Larry's project to put together a set of plans so we could be at a bid-ready state for that work. And then we will also be doing some window repair. We got a fair amount of seals and leaks in the windows that we also need to replace.
Should be noted during the December 31st storm, there was water literally pouring in from the roof when the ceiling fell in, correct, Mr.
Yeah.
Still? And when they looked up there, you could literally see out to the membrane of the roof.
One thing that we need to clarify, the city did have $150,000 in the 2020 budget for this, so you can see that it's going to require an additional $100,000. We did propose that that be split between coming out of the designated reserve for the future fire station, which is where we took a portion of that out of, also out of E911 reserves, and then the remaining amount, the $33,334, come out of additional contingency. So I would have to list that on your contingency for 2020.
So we'd get the 100 down to 33,000.
Yep.
For,
Yep, the rest of it would come out of designated reserves.
my only, and that was part of my concern, yeah, we have a roof and we missed the budget by 100,000, but I just, saying we have 100,000 in contingency and we're only in the second meeting of January is a little unnerving. So, seeing that down to 33,000 is a little better, but, I guess that's my view on it. I don't like to, hope we don't have to have contingency applications prior to April.
And Steve, the 250,000 is an estimate, I mean.
Right.
The
We're-
bid might
we're-
come in somewhere
we're gonna-
less than that, too.
Go into a contract to get
Yeah.
that all defined and bid it out, and we'll
Yeah.
know what everything comes back
Yeah.
as before we spend any money.
Right.
And when it was budgeted, it was anticipated that it was just the
Just the
roof,
roof?
and then the other issues were found.
Okay.
So that's
Right.
the discrepancy with the budget.
I'll move approval of the contract for professional services.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2020-06, Equitable Sharing Agreement Certification.
This is another agreement for public safety. It's an annual agreement that they do with the state. Glenn can speak to that.
Yeah, it's actually with the Department of Justice, is what it is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2020-07, a solid waste management program grant for the landfill compactor purchase. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, in 2019, the city of Mitchell worked with District 3 on guidance and assistance from them on a solid waste management program grant application. On January 3rd, the South Dakota DNR approved the grant application for 20% of the approved costs, not to exceed $118,000, and staff recommends the city council approval and acceptance of that grant.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2020-08, a solid waste management program grant agreement. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the city worked with District 3 again on another solid waste management program grant for the single-stream recycling equipment purchase. And on January 3rd, 2020, DNR approved grant for 50% of the approved costs, not to exceed $545,000. And staff recommends city council approval and acceptance of this grant.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve the purchase of dumpsters for recycling project 2026D. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a request to spend some of the grant money. And so we have a request from a number of different apartment complexes and commercial businesses that would like to utilize the city's recycling program and have dumpsters placed in those locations. I have outlined two separate types of dumpsters that will work with two contractors to build. One is an area that's, it's got the, let me see, it's got the different finish, the power coat, which would be in more visible places, and the others would be just the metal finish and be hidden behind buildings. So that's the reason for the two different quotes. City staff recommends approval of the purchase of the 2 cubic yard dumpsters for a total of $12,190.
So do you have locations identified or private places identified that are looking for these? And do we have any others that we can just put like in a city parking lot and say people can
Yeah.
take stuff for recycle, or at least at certain times?
Yes, sir. So there are a couple of places that people can bring them. They can bring their recyclables to the old landfill where
I know,
Dependable
the
was.
old landfill is not convenient to have to
Right.
go to. If I'm
The other,
driving something around and I've got a pickup load of cardboard that drop it off someplace in town is a lot easier than having to drive 3 miles out to the old landfill.
Yes, sir.
He's got other-
The other location is at the compost yard. There's 2 dumpsters
okay.
there. And the compost gate is opened right now, so it's open 24 hours. We have cameras set up so that we can
So,
monitor.
and we can recycle,
You can bring
Things
recycles
there?
to those dumpsters, yes, absolutely. We do have a place that we've been working with the rec center and JVCC for those facilities. There are 2 dumpsters here at the Corn Palace. We're getting involved with those departments on the recycling and the events that happen there. We have had commercial requests from businesses at Highland, Musics, different apartment complexes, and that's where these would go.
okay.
It's taking off.
Yep.
A lot better
Yep.
than we expected, so.
Yep.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
McCardle. Was that you, Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve the purchase of payloader for Mitchell Recycling Facility Project 2026E. Mr. Croce?
Mr. Mayor and Council, and this is the request from the city to purchase the 908M payloader for the city of Mitchell Transfer Station facility. I think we had quoted $115,000 in the recycle outline in July 2019. We've got a cost estimate, actually a cost price from a vendor for $115,988. And then additional purchase of the grapple bucket, which is another $4,521. So the total is $120,509.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve purchase of payloader for landfill project 2020-19. Mr. Croce?
Mr. Mayor and Council, and this is an item, this is a purchase of a payloader for the landfill that was budgeted for 2020. The amount was estimated at $226,000 for the landfill payloader in budget year 2020, and we have an estimate cost for the payloader at $218,217 delivered to the city.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience wishes to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve purchase of a 2019 Bow Mag for the Mitchell Regional Landfill, Project 2020-22. Mr. Croce?
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is the last request for purchase tonight of the Bow Mag at,
Spending a lot of money.
so when we get the grant, we like to spend it. So they're estimated for quoted price for the Bow Mag is $597,796, and we would utilize the recently approved grant funds of $118,000 at 20%. The rest of the funds would come from budget 2019 to be utilized. The scraper we would not purchase, we did not purchase in 2019. We would look to pushing that off a couple of years. And then extra money that we didn't use, since we used reused materials. Basically, we had pipe culvert material, so we had $150,000 budgeted for 2019, and that money is left over since we used the gravel and the pipe culvert that we had. So we would take $29,796 from that line item.
So you'll see that roughly $480,000 come as a supplemental appropriation request this spring when we look at unspent funds for projects in 2019.
Once we get
Yep.
2019 booked. So is there a reason why we thought we needed a scraper in 2019 and then didn't buy one? We budgeted just in case, or what?
We did purchase that used scraper from Vanderpool Dragline for $60,000.
So we bought a used one instead of buying the...
Yes, yep. for the amount of time that we use it and the hours and everything, it
I
was just
remember
better
you
for
coming
us to.
and telling us about that. now,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
I saw
then-
it on the streets the other day, wasn't it? Cleaning snow? Oh, that is.
Our
the one
scraper?
Yeah.
I have one, it's
No.
two that are out there on the
No.
streets, but this one I think is
Maintainers,
for the.
we had the maintainers.
Maintainers.
On the maintainer.
Oh,
That's not a
the-
scraper?
No, motor grader.
don't
You've
know
seen
what
the
a-
motor grader out there. Scrapers, no, they're
Just
huge.
Side hill out.
Oh, sure, okay.
So
I-
I'm
okay.
assuming the 450, if that was budgeted for the scraper and we spent 60,
60.
then we have 390 left. I don't know what those final numbers are because we have not closed out the year. So what you're seeing there is not
Okay.
really what's available for budget in 2020, just so council's aware.
And we'll see those numbers when, Stephanie, again?
It's usually.
February, March?
Yeah,
Very good.
but if you're authorizing the purchase, just be aware you're authorizing the expenditure now, so.
And how did we have piping left over or whatever? I mean, my concern is that we budget for things and then don't buy them, and then we find some other use for the money at a later time, and that's not, it's a pet peeve of mine.
So what we had estimated a brand-new pipe culvert at the old landfill area,
And we didn't
and
need to,
we looked at what we had and what we could utilize for the gravel and pipe culvert materials. Not to say that we couldn't do some more improvements on that area, but right now, it's working and people can access the facility safely.
well, I'll move approval of the last purchase item for tonight.
Are you sure?
Second that.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2020-04, vacation of the north-south alley within block 24. MH Raleigh's second edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
We're not asking for any money. So,
This is the alley, right?
Yeah, this is the alley. You may all recall about this. It's marked on there with the X's showing it's the one on the north-south. It took a little longer because I had to try to find the right party who had the authorization to sign for Northwestern. And so we have all four parties have agreed to sign the petition, Mr. Stadler, the Contreras, Beshan, and Northwestern. So you can see that.
Everybody's in agreement?
Everybody's in agreement, and it's been public noticed and and I didn't receive any objections, so.
Move to approve.
unless there's
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr.
guys?
McCardle.
Okay.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it?
Thank you.
You're welcome, finally. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2020-05, authorize mayor to accept employee release agreement.
Move to approve the mayor to accept employee release agreement.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience wishes to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on resolution R 2020-06, authorize abatement of nuisance at 414 South Montana. This is another one of our infamous cat houses, correct? Motion by Mr. McCardle to approve,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion?
Yeah, and I've been, and there's been a couple people, counselors on with a similar concern from the sheriff's department on West Second of, apparently they're serving papers there and fell through the front porch. And I know there are other nuisance type
Mr.
things
Croce
associated with
has
that.
applied to FEMA for a grant to try and eliminate, if you will, that trailer court. Am I speaking correctly, Mr. Croce?
So it's an agreement both with the existing owner of the property now and it's an application through FEMA in District 3 for purchase of that property.
If that goes through, there will be no more residences in that area.
My other comment in seeing this, and I know of this house because I knocked on their door when I was running for city council. How many other nuisance properties do we have in the system, and do they all take this long?
I guess that's
Do we know how many at least we have in the system right now?
I
that
don't
we've
have a number.
sent notice to?
I'm sure Wade could provide that information. I don't have.
Can we
it.
find out at a future council meeting?
And I think Wade usually gives a report, but I don't know. I know that there wasn't one included on this meeting, but
Yeah, which ones have we sent for orders to correct, and where are they in the timeline?
right. And I guess with that information, I would just point out that every situation is different.
I know,
and
yep,
that
and-
It's difficult to look at numbers on nuisance cases specifically, so.
Did the owner respond at all to the letters that were sent with the 14-day notice that we gave?
Are we back talking about this?
Yeah, I'm
specific
sorry.
This
location?
house, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
as to this one, the owner has been pretty cooperative since the order to correct was issued, and had been working with law enforcement for a while before that to have some animals removed from the home. As far as any of the cleanup, I don't think that there's anything that could be done to salvage the house, and as far as I know, the owner hasn't made any efforts to do so.
And so the city will front the upfront costs and will go against the property then?
Right, it would be assessed.
And how soon would we act? Very soon?
I'm not sure. I would guess they'd try to get to it as soon as they can. And I don't know if this is one where they were looking to do it in-house. I don't know the details on
Okay.
that side of it.
You looking to do this in-house, Kyle?
Yeah, we would look at, Kevin taking a look at the house and seeing if we could manage that, and then all the costs would be assessed, like Justin said.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-07, approve ambulance billing services contract.
Move to approve the contract with Quick Med Claims that we discussed.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. First read on ordinance O 2020-01, establishing airport ramp regulations. Mr. Croce?
They look at each other.
Oh, Mr. Johnson, are you going to handle it?
That's fine. I wrote it. I can talk to it. So this one, there was an issue out at the airport with a plane that was basically left on the ramp for an extended period of time. They've come across this issue a couple times, and airport manager wanted to implement some rules to help us address those types of situations. He looked at Watertown's regulations, and these follow Watertown's regulations pretty closely. We changed it a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it just prohibits people from keeping their planes on the ramp for over 10 days. You can't, stick a derelict aircraft out there and just allow it to sit. It's got to be operable. It's got to be moved prior to snow events. If it's not, the FBO can go out there and move the plane and charge the cost to that owner. And if there's some other circumstance where we need the plane moved, we can also direct the FBO to go and do that, so.
Place on first reading.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Get it?